All right, family culture talk, take one. How's this look?
You do takes?
No, I'm just practicing to see how the shot looks. So I don't have like a producer. Like I was your producer, but I don't have a producer. All right, family culture talk, take 5? Something like that. Hey, folks. Welcome to our bedroom. Slightly weird, but everything about life right now is super weird. So we're sticking with that theme, talking about family culture, and I hope things are well with you and your families during this really unusual season. And thanks to Zach and Lauren for inviting us to, my wife and I, she'll be here in a minute, to talk about family culture. Have you ever thought about what it's like to live in your family, like to live in your household? Like if your kids could talk, well, a lot of your kids do talk, but like if they could, that phrase, if the walls could talk. I don't know if I would want my walls to talk, but like if your kids could give this really sort of refined, reflective assessment of what it's like to live in your house, like the real scoop. Would you want to know? Have you ever thought about it? Like, what's it like to be a member of your household? Well, again, I'm not sure I really want to know that answer. But the answer to that question is kind of the first key to kind of understanding kind of the foundations of your family culture. And we're going to define that here in a little bit. But as a starting point, everybody kind of on this call tonight has a couple of things in common. Deeply committed Catholicism and a commitment to CCR and its way of life. So we've got those two things in common, and that's huge. Because as I talk to kind of Catholic families out in parishes, you kind of don't know kind of where they're at as far as their commitment to Catholicism, to Jesus Christ, and to building kind of a Catholic way of life in their family. But when I'm speaking with you, I know those two things. I know deeply committed Catholicism and a commitment to CCR, which is aimed at living a rich Catholic way of life. So I know that about all of you. Now, while that's true, that's really where the similarities end. And so, but here's the thing, and that's a good thing. I think that's a beautiful thing, because while we have that in common, there's a lot of things that are very unique and unrepeatable about living in your household. And in fact, that's God's gift to you and to every member of your family. It's your unique and particular pathway to sainthood. And I think that's something we want to embrace. And so my experience when it comes to culture, there's a story that I've shared before, and I'll share it again right now, that had a really deep impact on me around this area. Jill and I have been missionaries for many years, and in 2003 we went to a Catholic high school in Northern California. We met with all of their seniors, one religion class at a time, and we had a survey for them, and we asked 8 different questions, and then we were going to have a discussion with the class based on their answers. The first question we asked is, what are the 3 most important priorities in your life? And at a Catholic school, I thought, I wasn't expecting a ton of like God answers, but I was expecting, a good handful. And when we counted them all up, after 250 students that we met with that day and 750 possible responses, there was only one mention of God. And I've reflected on that over the last number of years, and I think there's really only one answer that is sort of satisfying, that it's around the idea of culture. Is they were a Catholic school without a strong Catholic culture. They had a strong academics culture. They had a strong sports culture. They were one of the best football programs in Northern California. They were a school of Catholics, but they weren't necessarily a Catholic school. So the same could be said of our families. Are we a family of Catholics, or are we Catholic families? Because there's a really, really big difference. So what is the culture of your family, of your unique family? Yes, Catholicism. Yes, CCR. But then how does that play out in your family? What is the culture of your family? Well, I asked a couple of families in CCR who have really strong, healthy, formative Catholic cultures in their family. And I asked them for their definition of family culture. You guys know Bill and Tiffany Dill. Here was their definition. Love this. It says, family culture is the atmosphere we create in our home that comes from and expresses our deepest values and facilitates our becoming who God made us to be. Beautiful. So you can see that it's something that they create and expresses their values and helps to form the members of the family. Thanks, Bill, Tiffany. Awesome. How about Ed Gross? Ed and Leslie Gross say this: we are the Grosses, and this is what we do, and this is how we do it. Underneath this doing is a system of beliefs which drives the what and the how. So their values play out in the choices that their family makes and how they choose to live their life. And it forms them into who God, again, wants them to be. So these are great examples, the Dills and the Grosses. And they really help to begin to shape our understanding of what is family culture. And it's the invisible force kind of behind the scenes that is shaping all of us into who we're going to become. Whether we create it intentionally or not, every family has a culture. It's just a question of whether or not we've taken hold of it and decided to shape it for the good. Every family has a culture, and it is having a huge impact on our lives. So how would we define it? If I was going to make a stab at it, here's how I would define family culture. It's the formative convergence of our prevailing values, present realities, and past experiences. So it's the formative convergence of prevailing values. First, what is that? Well, we have certain commitments and things that are important to us, values that we hold to be priority in our life. But then those values get turned into habits and attitudes and commitments and decisions that our family makes. So the values have to become concrete. So it's first the formative convergence of our prevailing values and how those are expressed in our life, combined with our present realities. Maybe there are some things that are just true about life right now. Again, maybe there's a job change, or there's an illness, or there are other, like in our life, puberty is a present reality. Maybe for you, a present reality is like a growing family and diapers and potty training. These are all present realities. And then again, of course, now present reality, we're in this crazy present reality, which is having a deep impact on the culture and experience of our family. So prevailing values, present realities, but also past experiences. What have we experienced both as a couple and as when we were single growing up? Maybe a parent's divorce, or maybe there was a season of underemployment, or whatever past experiences, positive or negative. You add all of that together and it creates this formative convergence that is the culture of our family. And so I'm hoping that now, in just a few minutes, I'm going to invite Jill to share a little bit about the values and how the values we've sort of chosen and some of the past experiences that we've had, and then some of our present realities, and how that kind of unique concoction has sort of set the stage for the O'Hara family and the O'Hara family culture. Some of which, and I think it's good to note, some of which we have chosen, and some of which we didn't choose. So some things we determined, and some things were given to us. And so that's part of what the exercise is tonight. It's not so much prescribing to you what your family culture should be, but it's more defining what family culture is and encouraging you to describe what is your unique family culture. So I'd love to invite Jill now. Now let's cheer Jill on. She hates sitting in front of a camera and trying to talk into it. So let's cheer her on, and she's going to share a little bit about the mess that has been kind of our family life, and what values sort of undergird this kind of crazy mess that is our family.
I told Ryan we needed to bring some reality to this talk, that we needed to look honestly at our own family and see if we were even matching up to any of these ideals that would be part of a family culture that he was hoping to encourage other people towards. So we did take an inventory of this, and it was hard to look at because our family's kind of a mess and our culture doesn't look much better. But it was really neat. It was also kind of encouraging to see that the things that we were trying, we were struggling in some areas, but we were also making some progress in some others. And as we looked at our family culture, we came up with 5 areas that are real values to our family. And I hope that you can also be encouraged as you look at this too, that you're doing a lot of things well. The first of our values that we saw as a family is a missionary lifestyle, a call to be missionaries. And that's been something that's been a part of Ryan and I's life since we were first married. The second is that our family has come together through foster care and adoption. So adoption and our multiracial identity is very important to us. And this plays out in the decisions that we make. For example, going to a St. Paul church that's more diverse. That's where we primarily attend and where our kids are altar servers. We also celebrate adoption days, and we attend adoption events and do things that promote adoption. The third thing that's important to our family, that's a value that we have, is a therapeutic outlook on the way that we solve problems. That our kids have been formed by trauma in their earlier years before they came to us, and then even things that have happened since then, and that we're always looking for therapeutic solutions to deal with the healing and the brokenness that's a part of our lives. The fourth thing is activity. Our kids, just the way they're made up, we need a lot of activity to keep them busy, to keep people from fighting and being overstimulated in our house. So we do a lot outside of our home. And this is partly because of our family, the way that our kids are made, but also Ryan and I, we've always valued physical activity and being active and doing things that we find meaningful and challenging and exciting. Next, and last, is an honesty and openness that's very important to our family. We work hard to make sure that our kids feel comfortable talking to us about anything, and we've always been open with them. They've known since they were little that they were adopted, and we've been honest with them about the circumstances that brought them to that situation, such as their parents not being married or the drugs and alcohol and abuse that were part of their birth families. We also work hard to be honest about our own failures and to be real with the kids about those, and to seek reconciliation when we find things that we failed in. So honesty and openness is extremely important to us.
So we want you to take a few minutes, and maybe you'll get a chance now here kind of on this Zoom call or perhaps later, and encourage you to kind of go through the exercise in one way or another. Here's the exercise. What is unique about your family? Yes, deeply committed Catholicism, CCR, but what's unique about your family? What are the prevailing values for your family in a particular way? For Jill and I, we talked about missionary life and foster care and adoption and activity and so on. Some of those things were things we chose. Some of those things were just part of our makeup. So what are your prevailing values? What are your present realities? Yes, COVID and all of that, but more broadly, what are the present realities that COVID has been situated in your life that is kind of unique? What also then are some of your unique past experiences that influence and shape your experience of family life? Love for you to take a few minutes to name values, present realities, and past experiences, and then rank them. Rank the top 3 that are impacting and shaping your family. So about a year ago at men's retreat, a brother was praying with me during the prayer meeting, and he had this image of a tapestry. And he was talking about how for so long, for me as the dad and kind of leader of the family in this kind of crazy mess that is our family life, I'd been looking at this tapestry, but I was looking at it from behind and seeing all the squigglies and the yarn and the mess, and it didn't quite, you could kind of make it out, but you couldn't quite see it, and it wasn't really that attractive. But Jesus is looking at that same tapestry from the other side and invited me to flip it over, in a sense to kind of flip the script, to see, obstacles maybe as opportunities, and that he was doing something beautiful, even though I couldn't always see it. And I trust that that's true in each of your families as well, is that God is knitting together something profound, something beautiful, even though it looks quite crazy. And we're not always looking at it from the right perspective. And so tonight isn't so much about prescribing how you kind of get this perfect Catholic family culture, but helping you to describe what your family culture is. So that's the first step. We need just to describe, like, where is the "you are here" dot? Where is your family culture? Now, the last step is to name what needs to be changed to help best calibrate your family culture, to help your family become the saints that God created all of you to be. And so now is the time to take a look at what tweaks ought we make to help our family culture be formative in the best way possible. And so Jill is going to share again. Jill, I love you. You are the absolute best. You'll probably never watch this video because you couldn't stand watching yourself on the video. But she's going to share a little bit about what tweaks we've made and how we had to see our family life differently, and that change of perspective that God gave us really helped us to see the positive around us and gave us hope in moving forward. Take a listen.
So, as we were looking at our family culture, it was really difficult to look at. But I felt this way until I was able to acknowledge the fact that the reason that our family culture was such a mess is because Ryan and I had made a decision to live generously with our lives. That the whole reason we were in a situation where family culture was so hard to live out in the way that we desired, it was because we'd chosen to take on this radical lifestyle of foster care and adoption. And those things came about because of our personality and circumstances, our desire to follow the Lord, because we had found out that we weren't able to have children. But that's how we gotten ourselves into this situation. And so I think that many families are probably in that situation too, that they're desiring to live generously for the Lord. Maybe you've taken in an in-law that makes life more complicated. And so because of this generosity, it's hard to actually live out the radical, Christian faith that we so much desire. So this helped me to be patient with myself and with our family, to realize that God has us exactly where we are and that he's working with us. And even in our failures and our struggles and our shortcomings, we're okay. That God is doing something in our life. But he also doesn't want to keep us that way. So as we looked at our family culture, Ryan and I kind of honed in on two areas where we really wanted to make some tweaks. And the first one was really a bit of a success story, and so I want to share that first, that we desired to do more with family prayer. That as the kids were little, we would look at other families who were incorporating family prayer into their lives, even with small children, and they were successful at being able to have their kids sit still and do long periods of prayer. And we tried to do that and found that our kids just have a hard time sitting still. And so we even got to the point where we had little carpet squares on the floor and we're trying to hold them down, but we just found ourselves so frustrated, and it just was not going well. And to a point where Ryan and I kind of became just complacent with just having prayer with Ryan and I saying prayer in the vicinity of the kids, and the kids not really engaged. And we would keep doing that until it got too loud for us to continue, or we physically had to restrain someone who was fighting off on the side. So when we were evaluating things a couple of years ago, we realized this is an area we really wanted to make some improvements on. And the first thing we did was just kind of lower our expectations. They didn't have to be perfect. We wanted some consistency of some type of family prayer every day. And so we took on the Liturgy of the Hours, just doing night prayer daily. It takes just a couple of minutes to finish that, and adding some intercessions periodically. And we did Lord's Day, a very simplified version of Lord's Day on Saturday nights. And we can say now that our kids know the Lord's Day prayers, and they have the night prayer memorized and some of those scriptures. And it just feels really good that we are consistently doing this, even if it doesn't look perfect. So I see that as an area we've had some success. An area that we still need to work on is our speech within our family. That we have a lot of negative speech. That's a result of that trauma that I was talking about earlier. The kids really kind of are backbiting and saying a lot of negative things to each other. Plus their impulsivity, there's a lot of cursing and things like that. And we need to continue to look at that and see how we can make some improvements in the way that our family speaks to one another. It's definitely an area that needs improvement.
So the last exercise, thank you, Jill, for sharing about those tweaks, some things that are working, some things that are we still need some work. There are F-bombs that fly through the night as we're praying night prayer. Among other times, the F-bombs go flying, but I digress. What about you guys? What needs to shift? Take a few minutes to kind of note with your spouse, or just to reflect there yourself, what needs to change. Just name one thing. In fact, how could this kind of time, this season of quarantine, be a chance to kind of double down on some things that we could just shift? Just name one thing, one tweak that you think would make a difference. Again, it's been a joy to talk with you tonight. Grateful for the chance to be here. God bless you. Thanks so much.